Show me your world, Chris.
Well, I thought we'd start with Crouch Tram Museum.
Great.
Dear Mum, Yorkshire is lovely, not like you said at all. They can smile, and they do sell my pasta sauce. The caravan bed is quite short, but Chris is a sensitive lover. Hope you can be happy for me. Love, Tina.
Yeah, good girl.
You are going to pick that up.
I didn't do that.
If you don't pick up this excrement immediately, then I'm going to have to inform the National Trust.
Report that to the National Trust, mate.
I don't want this to ruin our holiday.
Get in.
Never thought about murdering innocent people before.
He's not a person, Tina. He's a Daily Mail reader. Say one word and it's...
I get it, it's just thinking outside the box.
The police are pursuing a ginger-faced man and an angry woman.
Sit! You're a liability. You're just like your mother.
Has it gone wrong?
Yeah, a bit.
You didn't let him see you do number twos, did you, Tina?
We both said what a nice couple we thought you were. Oh, I love her.
I can fly!
Everyone else seems to find it so easy to express themselves. I mean, even you've got your knitting. Have you had a nice holiday?
Yeah, had a brilliant holiday.
Fuck you! Fuck you!
I am Police Officer 2, Brian Taylor. This is my partner, Officer Zavala.
I'm in my chonies.
I know, dude. Come on, come on.
I'm in my chonies. No.
Come on, man. We work basic patrol here in Newton, one of the toughest divisions in the LAPD.
Take pride in what you do, you guys. Yes.
We are streaming many of the sessions, including this one, live on YouTube. So if you want to watch it back in high def afterwards, you can do that at youtube.com/Eurogamer. And for that reason, we do ask out of respect for our speakers that you don't film while the presentation is going on. Anyway, thank you very much. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speakers. This is Clive from Codemasters Racing and his colleagues, and they're going to show you Grid 2.
Thank you very much, and welcome to our Grid 2 developer session. Actually, before we really go into any of the details on the game, I would just like to play a quick video that gives you a really good flavour of what we're about.
Peggy 7.
Okay, so for those that don't know me, my name is Clive Moody. I'm the executive producer on Grid 2, and my history goes back, well, some 12 years actually, in the field of racing games and actually working for Codemasters. For those of you that have got long memories, that's feeding right back to the Toka race driver days, feeding into the original Grid, and also a big hand in a lot of the dirt titles as well. So the theme of our presentation this afternoon is Total Race Day Immersion. And actually, immersion is a word that you're going to hear quite a lot this afternoon because it's really, really important to us and what we're doing with the game. So what do we mean? What's it all about? Well, in actual fact, it's a design philosophy that we are using throughout the title. It is all pervasive. And this is an expression that we coined pretty early on in the pre-production period of the game. And it's something that we want every single aspect, every single design element to speak towards. So what is it in a nutshell? Well, it's trying to capture and distill everything that's great about racing and everything that is great about motorsport. It's the anticipation of the build-up. It's the tension and the drama that you get with all of those cars sitting on the start line, all revving their engines, all waiting for those start lights to go out. It's the absolute explosion of speed as they all take off, cars jostling for position, all trying to get that great line, trying to get a clean line into that first corner and get around that first corner cleanly. It's the battle. It's the moment-to-moment, split-second decisions that you and all those other guys that are on the track are having to make, trying to find those perfect opportunities to overtake. It's the glory. You want to win that race. You want to be first across the line. You want to take the checkered flag. And it's everything that comes with that glory as well, the celebrity and the rewards. And in actual fact, one of the things we're seeking to do with Grid 2 is that all of your successes, all of your actions on the track get reflected back in that world. And this we can do in many, many ways. For example, win races, you would expect to be able to enter bigger and more prestigious events, more prestigious championships. You'd expect also to get access to bigger, better, faster cars. And all of this happens. But it goes beyond that as well. Your home, your hub, the garage from which you are charting your career and plotting your career is also expanding and reflecting those successes on the track. So what else is really important? Well, you really can't have good racing without great AI, the other guys on the track that are going to be battling out against you. And this is where we've developed our driver ability system. It's an all-new piece of technology that we've put in place for Grid 2. And at its heart, are 60 parameters, and these 60 parameters allow us to define the behaviors of other cars on the track, other drivers on the track. And this is really important because we want this to feel like a really human experience. You know, so many games, driving games especially, can feel a little bit soulless, you know, a little bit robotic, and it's something we really, really want to avoid. So what are these 60 parameters? Well, far too many to go into here, but for example, reaction speeds. Are they an aggressive driver? How smoothly are they going to drive? Are these the guys who are going to try and dart into a gap whenever they see one? Are they going to be a little bit more cautious? And all of these parameters go to build up a really, really diverse and human-feeling set of drivers on the track. But then we do something else. We take it a stage further. And again, this comes down to the humanization. The parameters are fine as they stand, but they're also dynamic. So allow me to give you a bit of a scenario. Let's say there's a guy in front of you. You think you're faster than him. You think you can get past him. So you're really giving him a hard time. You're hustling him. Maybe there's a little bit of contact there. This guy's eventually going to react the way that you're behaving towards him. And there's a few ways that he might do this. If he's a really cautious driver, he may well think, you know what? I'm not having this. I'm just going to back off. I'm not going to let this guy take me out of this race and spoil it for me. That way, at least I know I can get across the line. The alternative is he might actually just see the red mist a little bit. He might get aggressive back to you. He might start pushing you around as well. And all of these things are happening in real time. All of these things are happening throughout the race, and actually all of these things carry across the races as well. And that's a really important element because we want to build those rivalries. The rivalries are really important. You see this in real-world motorsport, and we want to reflect that back into the game. So, I'm hoping that you've all had an opportunity to go and play the 2 experiences that we have out on the floor. Show of hands, you all had a go? Good portion of people. Obviously, the people watching on YouTube or watching the live feed won't have had that opportunity, so I'll explain a little bit about what we've got out on the show floor today. We have 2 experiences, and these speak to 2 very different types of racing, 2 very different types of motorsport, and variety is very, very important to us. The first is Chicago, what you see on the image there. And Chicago is a street race based around a street circuit, wheel-to-wheel action, very, very fast, very intense, very exciting. And we set the cars up in a special way for this track because it's a classic US city. And US cities tend to have a grid layout, and that means lots and lots of 90-degree corners. Our cars for this are set up with a fair degree of oversteer. This means you can really push the back end out. You can have some fun drifting it around the corners. And if you get it right, yeah, I mean, it's really, really pleasing to be able to do that. Second experience we have out on the show floor, very, very different, but no less exciting. California Coast. It's a road race, and this is all new for Grid 2. We haven't done road racing before, so it's a point-to-point race. You versus just one other guy on the track. And road racing is different, very different, in fact, from what you have with the street racing. Not least of which because it adds some additional elements of danger. Take the traditional street circuit that we have. Lots of barriers, lots of stacks of tire walls, a lot of those safety aspects that you see in motorsport. Well, closing off a road, it's pretty much impossible to put all of those elements back into it. So whilst there are barriers, there are not many, and there are areas on the track where you can really mess up, screw up, and basically have big accidents. So you will see cliff edges that you can go off of. You will see rows of trees, forests on either side that you can freely drive into, stack the car into them, and sheer cliff edges. And we think this gives a whole new dimension, new danger, new elements of excitement into the game. So there's a third aspect of Grid 2, which we haven't as yet spoken about, but is no less important. And that's the area that's really at the traditional heart of motorsport, circuit racing, track racing. We want to make sure that we reflect that accurately as well in the game. So we are now, for the first time, going to show you a video clip. This is the Red Bull Ring. For those that don't know, it's a track which is in Austria, ex-Formula 1 circuit. Currently used for things like Formula 2, touring cars. So circuit racing for the first time. So the observant amongst you who have been down to our stand might have noticed that we have the Bac Mono Car down by our stand, down by Grid 2. That is one of the cars that you see on this demonstration now. Really lightweight, superb power to weight ratio, absolutely perfectly suited to this style of racing. Circuits like this with out and out fast straight sections and then really exciting combinations of corners. You know, it really is about knowing the track. It really is about shaving those tenths of seconds off those lap times. You know, that's the difference really between the glory, taking the checkered flag, and being an also-ran. So whilst this is playing, it's probably a really good opportunity for me to talk a little bit about handling, which is the heart, the very core of what makes great racing experience. And this is something at Codemasters which we take incredibly seriously and have actually been putting a huge amount of effort into for Grid 2. And let me just try and get a little bit technical with you, but I'll keep it as simple as I can. I want you to think about a car which is traveling at 150 miles an hour, which is, you know, more than easily possible by a lot of the cars, or most of the cars that we have in the game. 150 miles per hour is the equivalent of 67 meters per second. That's a huge distance to travel in that time. Now think about what physics systems have to do in video games. It's all about how quickly you can sample, how quickly you can update. So a typical video game may well run at 60 frames a second, actually, or indeed 30 frames a second. But we'll take 60 as the example here. Let's say the physics system is also running at that same frame rate, which again is not uncommon. That means that the physics would be sampling about once every meter of the track. We don't think this is enough. In fact, we know it's not enough. If you really want to get all of the nuances, pick up all of those little undulations, all of those bumps that are in a track surface, you need to be able to sample and run your physics at a much, much higher rate. And this is what we've done with Grid 2. We now actually sample at 1,000 hertz. That is 1,000 times per second. Centimeter accuracy on the track. Class leading. And the effect really is that, you know, you feel much, much more connected to the track. You really understand what the car is doing. Every nuance is coming through the tires, the wheels, the suspension, and the steering. And there's another piece of magic that happens when you run at 1,000 hertz, and that's you get accessibility built in. It's because you do understand what the car is doing. So in Grid 2, we no longer have need for assists. We've taken them all away. What you have is the pure physics and nothing but the pure physics. There is nothing else layered on, and yet the game is still accessible. Actually, I was talking to somebody out on the show floor yesterday, a guy who'd been trying out all of the experience that we've had, both on the pad and on the steering wheel. I got chatting to him, and he was saying how much he was enjoying the game, which was obviously fantastic for me to hear. And he said, yeah, you know what? It's really, really great, but I'm not really a big racing fan. And the reason I'm not a big racing fan is that I don't get on with it. You know, I find it too complicated. But he goes, but I won, and I don't really get why I won in this. And that was the time when I started telling him about what we've done with our physics. And it's what we call the true field system. And he got it, and he understood it, and it made a difference. So somebody who wouldn't normally be able to pick up a racing game of this depth could actually drive it. So just one other aspect, really, before I hand over to some of my colleagues to look at other bits and pieces with the game. Crashes and collisions are just a natural part of racing. They are a natural part of motorsport. And nothing breaks the immersion more, I think, in a racing game than bouncing off a tire wall, bouncing off a barrier, or indeed hitting another car and there being no consequence. So with that in mind, I'd like to hand over to Gahan Patharaja, who heads up our car handling team. He's going to talk you through a little bit about our damage modeling.
Thank you, Clive. Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Gin. I'm the lead car handling designer in Codemasters, and I am arguably the biggest car nut in the studio, which is quite a feat considering the staff we have. When I was 5 years old, I remember owning so many Matchbox toy cars that my granddad actually built a miniature multi-story car park to house them all in. I used to drive them all over the house, through the kitchen, in the garden, and in my mind I would imagine the world's greatest car chases ever that would invariably end in the most spectacular of crashes, the sort of things that you'd see out of like Kit in Knight Rider doing a turbo boost, or the General Lee and the Dukes of Hazzard doing a corkscrew jump over the river or something like that. As I got older, of course, things moved on from Matchbox cars onto computer games, and despite some games offering visual damage, much was left to the imagination. So when I got the job as a car handling designer on the original Grid, my aim was to deliver that vision of destruction and damage I had when I was 5 years old. And now 6 years later, that aim holds true today. And today, I'll be discussing how we're finally able to achieve that with the great technology developed in-house by the Codemasters development team. Okay, so where do we start? So we could look at other racing games and perhaps have a predefined damage model of the car to change into when the impact is of a certain severity, but that wouldn't really give us the believability or the detail that we're looking for. So instead, we looked at the automotive industry, which already uses software to simulate crash scenarios on their vehicles during the computer-aided design process when they're modeling their new cars. So this is primarily used so that manufacturers can examine the level of safety of their cars and its occupants, which is cheaper than actual destruction testing. So how is this done? Well, crash simulation software uses something called a finite element method to calculate the behavior of a car's structure in a crash. This is essentially a means to divide up a very complicated problem into small elements that can be resolved in relation to each other. So we have a picture of a 3D image of a car, the sort of thing you might get when modeling a car in CAD. If we were to zoom in, we could see that the finite element model is applied directly to the mesh. So in this image, we can see that it's broken down into nodes and elements, and each element has mass, and nodes have the freedoms to translate and rotate in each axis as well. So you can assume that if a node moves during a crash simulation, the connecting elements move, stretches, and bends, which causes other nodes to impart forces and moments on their nodal connectors. Now, unfortunately, it would take too long to set up the damage parameters like this in-game, and it would most likely take up a lot of computational resource. So how do we do it in Codemasters? Well, here's our car in-game. Here's a typical collision mesh that would be applied to the car. And here's our FEMS grid. It's not on the mesh, it's external to that, and applies across the car. On top of that, we also have something called strength boxes, which allows us to define exactly what the strength of those nodes and elements are like. So we can really control how stiff the engine block is, how stiff the roll cage is. So when it's in a crash, you can really see panels falling off and wrapping around those stiffer parts of the car. Okay, so just to give you an example, here is a car with the FEMS grid applied, and this is before we've had a bit of an accident. Afterwards, just a small frontal collision. You can see it's deformed the FEMS grid, and it's applied deformation to the car, or compression to the car. And just to highlight, this is exactly what happened. It's not just shortening just the front, it's actually transferring energy throughout the structure of the car as well. And this, the result of all of this cool stuff means that basically we can deform the cars dynamically at the point of impact as well. Okay, so next we've got a video that demonstrates the compression of our vehicles in a staged manner similar to that of the Euro NCAP crash test. So it's slightly offset to the wall, so you can see it's really twisting the car around and transferring energy across the chassis of the car as well. Okay. So in addition to the advanced way we calculate the compression of the vehicle, we also have a number of details that add to the overall effect of including morph targets, which aim to guide expected simulation to the deformation of specific materials and body panels. We've also got parts that can fall off, such as tires, punctures. You can get doors and windows that can come out as well. We also have particles that emit, such as smoke and sparks as well, which all help as well. So to demonstrate a few of these details, we have another video of a car in a barrel roll. And here you can see glass breaking, the body deforming evenly around the car, and roll caging holding the cabin intact as well as boots and parts flying off as well. Okay, so the thing to know about our damage system is that it's capable of running throughout the game and on all cars to a very high standard. So our final video shows 2 cars colliding head-on to show all the effects as we've just discussed. So here we've frozen time, and we're just doing a bit of a pan around the damage as well. And you can clearly see the level of detail we go into. The cars, as I say, form dynamically to each other. It's a very complicated amount of mass that happens in a very short period of time. It's very impressive, and we also have a lot of particles going on and body panels and such coming off the car as well, which I think you'll agree is quite impressive. Okay, so the thing to note about Grid 2, it's still in development, and we're always adding things all the time. And the things we'll be looking to add on later on are simulating different materials such as carbon fiber and fiberglass in the future as well. Now, I truly believe that with the Ego engine that we've got, boosting all of our cool tools, we're able to produce some of the best car damage seen in any racing game. And I feel that we're getting close to that vision I had when I was 5 years old, just without the Matchbox cars this time. And I hope you enjoyed my contribution to the presentation, and I'll pass you back to Clive.
That stuff looks brilliant, obviously, and yeah, technically it goes over my head as well, but I know the effect and the level of immersion that it brings to the game. So look, we're obviously always looking at ways to innovate as well and bring new ways, new experiences into the world of racing. So with that in mind, I'd like to hand over to Ian Smith, who's going to tell you a little bit about how we're changing the race. Ian.
Cheers, Tom. Thanks very much. How am I for time? Out of interest. Fine. Yeah, thanks very much to Clive and Gin. Apologies before I start for my voice. When you've been at Eurogamer for 3 days trying to shout over the crowd, it's quite difficult, so I might sound like a adolescent boy at some point. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about changing the race. Essentially, the original grid had 2 key aspects in it in terms of what we wanted to achieve as pillars for the game. So the first of those was that we wanted to deliver the things that Gin and Clive have already talked about, the things that all come together to crystallize the best-in-class racing experience. And secondly, the other pillar is that we want to innovate. And I think with the first grid, the things that were done there really made waves in the racing genre and did things that had a big impact. Equally, those 2 pillars stand true for Grid 2. So I want to talk to you about changing the race. So in terms of racing, we always want to deliver an experience where the players are going to get their hands on the game and want to perform that perfect lap. So in terms of driving around the tracks in the game, arriving at corners first, braking last, getting on the apex and getting on the racing line, being the first person to accelerate away and getting that advantage before you begin moving through the track and moving through the pack. And the things that go into that, you know, like really playing the track over and over. I mean, I've got the image here of Red Bull Ring, which Clive talked about earlier on. It's got those sweeping corners. It's got that really treacherous hairpin at the top. Players are going to have to play that hairpin numerous times before they get it right and really like hone their skills. play the game continually, and it's down to fractions of a second, really trying to improve their time, improve their performance, and really nail it. Own the track experience. And tracks are very important to us. So what happens when players have already done that? What next? I mean, once you've got those skills and you've moved forward and you've got those skills already and you want to take them online, that's fine. That makes sense. You can test yourself against other players. But what do we then provide for players? How do we make it more challenging? What is going to make it more intense, more visceral, more exciting for players? Well, we asked ourselves that in the development of the game, and we wanted to come up with an innovative way to continue keeping the player challenged. And that's the reason that we've come up with what we're calling the live route system. It's essentially a system which operates in real time. It streams seamlessly in the background of play, and it's essentially a system which will modify the route as you play it. So, to give you an idea of what that means for the player, these are the routes that we initially made for Chicago. These will be in the game, and these are the ones that you can really hone your skills in. They've got the corner sequences that our level design team have spent arduous hours, making sure that they link perfectly, and players will be able to sort of hone their time here. But they're finite, as I said. So once you've owned those, where do we go next? Well, we take all of that great knowledge that the level design team have in terms of corner sequences, in terms of setting up the challenging sequences for players. We go out there, we initially use GPS data, and then we sort of pick the corners that we think are going to work well. We go out there, get a feel for the track, and the place that we go to. I'm going to use Chicago as an example today. So once we've done that, we have a situation where we've got a track built that we have 104 unique paths in, we have 24 intersections, and really that means for us that we, well, the logical extension of that for us was to turn that into the live route system. So it essentially means that as players play through the game with the system turned on, it means that moment to moment the corner sequences can change. So a very simple illustration of that is cars starting from the same position, and the track is essentially changing in front of them. So instead of going straight on in this particular section, in this particular section, the car went straight on. In the other, you did a slalom. That's just at the most basic level how the system works. Turning left, turning right, going straight on. And essentially, that's working because everything that's built into the track in terms of the barriers, the crowd, the chevrons, and the set dressing, they are all seamlessly blending and changing in front of the player just out of eyesight. So you never see these things pop in, but the route will change and the challenge will continue to change. So the players have to be on the edge of their seat at all times. They have to have that attention level that keeps them gripped to the game and have them, it gives you that challenge from moment to moment. This is an extension of that explanation. So if you watch the car on the left, it's reached 140 miles per hour in the middle of this straight, but it's come at it from a direct straight before. This car has done a slalom in advance, and it's only doing 87 miles per hour. So the challenge coming into this right angle corner at the bottom is much different. It's very different for the player. So it's that really captivated us. We thought that this system was something that was going to give us so much more in terms of the possibilities from our tracks. It gives us a new challenge, and it gives us something that we can continue to play almost to the point where the combinations are limitless. You can continue to play this and not see the same sections repeat for very long periods of time. So there's no better way to illustrate it than to actually play live code. So if we can switch to the code demo. Gin, who as a car handling designer should be able to play the game pretty well, is going to attempt to gun his way down the track, and he'll show off how it's working. So all that we've done in this is set it up so that around the sort of 2 minutes 30, sorry, I lost my voice there. At the 2 minutes 30 mark, it's going to pull you back to a specific tunnel, which is a landmark within this. So this tunnel here we'll arrive back at in 2 minutes' time. But everything else about it is operating in a dynamic way. So the routes are actually changing up in front of the player seamlessly in real time. So actually, to extend the usage of the tunnel as a good landmark for this, we should probably see that a couple of times in this demo, but you'll actually approach it from numerous different angles. The challenge will be different every time you arrive at it. So obviously, as it's operating in a completely dynamic way, we can't guarantee when that's going to happen. So the next time it appears... Yes, so again, could you possibly pull up there? So obviously, the tunnel is now in the background, but you'll see that the track is now obviously sweeping across to the right. So the formation of the corners, the sequences, the challenge for the player at any one time is completely different. A couple of other things just to mention about this. In terms of online, this will be working online when you play against other players. The track will change as you play through the game, and that's an option that you can choose to turn on or off. Almost lost it there. So again, that was the tunnel, but this time we're sweeping across to the left. I believe that was a bridge that we started off at. So essentially, we've got all these different component parts to the level, which can be run in all of the different directions, and that also, so you can run them backwards, forwards, left and right, and it gives you almost endless different combinations of corners. So actually, in this instance, you're coming up to this tunnel, but previously you would have run through it straightforward. This time it actually has a corner sequence going through the tunnel. And it should sometime soon begin to pull us back to the location where we saw the tunnel first. And it's found its way back. So that's the end of the code demonstration. And as you can see, the unpredictability of the different aspects of this track really offer a really new challenge that's brand new for Grid 2 and also brand new for the racing genre. So on that, we can switch back to the presentation. I'll hand back to Clive.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you. So we're really excited, actually, about the... my voice is going as well. We're really excited about the possibilities and the opportunities that gives us and actually gives you as gamers in terms of some unpredictability within the race and also just, you know, infinite variety. So very exciting. We're pretty much coming towards the end now of our presentation for this afternoon. Clearly, we've only been able to scratch the very surface of a lot of what we have within the final game. And obviously we're doing this pretty early in the day as well. Grid 2 is not out, as you can see, until 2013. So the experiences that we have out on the show floor and the code that we've shown you here today is actually pretty early. So I need to thank everybody back at Codemasters, everybody within the racing studio who have worked really hard to get the code up to the level, the polish, and the standard that it's at today. And I'd like to leave you just with a little tease of some stuff which we'll be talking about in the future, but not now. So I'll play the VT.
We've got a little bit of time for Q&A. We've got the lights up, so we just need the guys with the mics. If you stick your hand up if you've got a question, the guys with the mics will find you. I think we'll start over here on the left. Yeah. Yeah, stand up to ask your question, then sit down again. That'd be brilliant. Thank you.
Hi, is there a possibility now or in the future that Cody's will revisit the British Touring Car Championship, or possibly the tracks such as Croft?
Actually, no, I get asked that question a lot, and we're not announcing or talking about anything to do with that at the moment. So, yeah, you never know, but no promises.
Okay, and over here on the right at the back, sorry.
Basically, one word: Raven West. Are they back?
So we have a very, very comprehensive single-player mode, and that is going to be the topic of conversation for a future announce. I think around November time, we're looking to talk about that. So yeah, more news in a couple of months' time.
Alrighty, one over here, I think, first. Yeah.
Great game, played the demo out on the floor and had a slight accident ending up in an ocean, but other than that, you can really feel the physics and everything, so that's really awesome. I just want to ask, we've seen sort of high-performance cars, that kind of thing. Is there any chance like GT races, Formula cars, that kind of thing in Grid 2?
Yeah, we haven't talked about cars in that much detail, but you know, we talked about the variety that we've got in terms of the race types and the race circuits, and that absolutely also crosses over to the variety of cars that we have in the game as well. So you will see a huge range. I think we're covering pretty much every base, or will be in the final game, so lots to look forward to.
Okay, we have time for 3 more, and it's going to go you, and then you, and then yes, over there at the back. Go.
Hi, old school fan of all the series, PS1, Toka Classics. But are you going to have dynamic weather in this?
So weather's an interesting one, and you know, again, there's lots of things we're not talking about. The reality is, you know, when we're designing a game, there's a whole wish list of things that we would like to put in there, and dynamic weather was definitely on our hit list. Ultimately, though, some things don't make the cut because, you know, to get the level of immersion, to do all of these things we're doing, like the 1000 hertz physics, this live route system, some things have to give. So sadly, I'm afraid the answer is no, we will not have dynamic weather in this game.
Okay, the next one is this guy.
Hello, huge Codemasters racing fan. Just wondering, what are you going to do for the leaderboards, if there are any at all, and how are you going to keep it so it's all balanced? And also, how many players are we looking at for the online?
3 questions, right. I'm going to try and remember them all as I answer them. First one was leaderboards, yes? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously, we will have a very, very comprehensive multiplayer mode for the game. Again, we'll be going to considerably more detail on that in the future, but definitely lots and lots of leaderboards. Actually, one thing we haven't really touched on, and you know, I guess we're a little short on time, so I'll keep it brief, is RaceNet and how that comes into the equation as well. RaceNet is our online service. It's a hub, a community for all of Codemasters racing titles. So a lot of stats-based information is going into that at the moment. It's supported by Showdown, it's supported by Formula 1, forthcoming Race Stars game will also support it, and it will be seeing a huge and significant upgrade for Grid 2. So a lot of the stuff that you're talking about will be in there, but it goes a lot further. If you haven't had a look at RaceNet, by the way, racenet.com, go and sign on and see what you can do with it. I've forgotten the other 2 questions.
Number of players, I think it was.
Number of players. We're still working on optimizations at the moment, but you know, we're looking 12, 16, more if we possibly can.
Wonderful. Okay. Last question will come from the back there on the right.
Hi, this is a question more for Gen, but I'm not sure who's best to ask. Basically, I'm horrifically impressed by the damage physics. I really am. But damage physics in games have always been very tricky in terms of the car companies getting very protective over their vehicles, and you know, you can't damage them in this way. You know, how difficult was it to convince them that you can damage them this much, and how much, as a percent, do you think if you damage it this much, this is how the car will control.
I could probably field that one actually, unless Gin really wants to get in there.
It's quite separate. There's two parts to that sort of question. My role is focused on making the damage as crazy as possible. And then it's up to Clive to really decide on how far we want to go with that. So I guess it's really a question for Clive.
So look, the reality is, obviously, we've been making racing games for a long, long time at Codemasters. And in that time, we've built up some fantastic relationships with pretty much all the car manufacturers out there. So, yeah, there's always a conversation about how far we can push damage. But by and large, so long as we don't injure the driver, and that's the really critical thing, that the cabin, the roll cage stays intact, we have a pretty free rein, and manufacturers are happy to let us do this stuff, which is why we can do amazing stuff like that with the cars and really just smash them to pieces.
I think the key aspect of it is that everything in the game, including the damage, goes away towards making it feel legitimate and tangible. And the damage's purpose in the game is to make it feel correct. There's nothing more jarring than hurtling down a road in a car that looks absolutely fantastic and then hitting a wall and nothing really happening, or the damage not being correct. So it's more to make the game feel true to life and to actually replicate what happens in motorsports, but not necessarily to do sort of extreme sort of doors and panels and various things sort of flying off just in a sort of over-the-top sort of way. I think with Grid, it's to do with actually making you feel like you're in a true racing experience.
There's actually just one other aspect, if I can quickly just jump in, that we didn't mention with damage. Obviously, it's visually very, very impressive. There's two ways we use that in the game. For those guys that really don't want it to affect the way the car's handled mechanically, you can have it as visual only. For those that really want the ultimate in that driving experience, then yes, that damage that you're getting on your car reflects back also to the mechanical performance of that car, so it has an effect. So there's that risk-reward associated with it if you are a really aggressive driver.
That's wonderful. We've completely run out of time, but it just remains to say thank you very much to all of you. Thank you to Clive and the other guys for a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.